All right, thanks everybody for joining us for the first episode of Quantum Leaps, the show where we interview artists, innovators, investors, and builders who are doing interesting and unique things with DeFi NFTs and nested NFTs. We have, for the first episode here, the one and only Gmoney. So thank you so much for spending a few minutes to chat with me today.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been on a lot of panels, a lot of interviews, a lot of podcasts. So I'm going to skip some of the basics and just get into it. Recently, you did something, I think the first time it's ever been done, which was taking a percentage of a fractionalized CryptoPunk, specifically an Ape punk, and depositing something like 8 or 9% of that fractionalized NFT inside another NFT and auctioning it. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the mechanics of that and the thought process behind it, and whether you think this is a sort of a strategy other people will be implementing going forward.
Yeah, awesome. So first, thanks for having me on. What my thought process behind it was one of the things that really attracted me to charged particles to begin with was the fact that you can make these structured products, right? So I come from the world of finance, and there's trillions of dollars that are wrapped in structured products on Wall Street, right? Mortgages, mortgage-backed securities, CDS, just every possible acronym that you can think of. So to me, that was always like kind of interesting. So when the buying frenzy happened about a month and a half ago, when I knew that there were a couple of people had reached out to me that week that were trying to buy out that ape. There were 2 unsuccessful buyouts of that ape from 2 different buyers, and I was in contact with both of them. And then when Gary Vee and another ape got sold relatively quickly after that, those buyers came to me because originally they didn't want to pay what I was willing to offer them my stake at. And then they came saying, "Oh yeah, I'd buy it at that price." I'm like, "Yeah, well, the price just went up. The price just doubled, right? I'm not going to give it to you at that stale price at this point." And so when they came to me and saying, "Oh, I'm interested," I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Like one of the things that I liked about charged particles was that like you can nest these ERC20 tokens within the NFT, and then you can sell that NFT, right? And you could either stream it or it could just be a position, right? So because that's basically what a position is. It is an NFT, right? So it's like you could own 1 token and I could own 50, and technically each of our positions is an NFT in and of itself. So I was like, all right, well, rather than me try to do an OTC deal with these people, why don't I make it available to everyone and let people know that it's available on the biggest marketplace out there, which is OpenSea. So what I did was I nested the tokens in the charged particle NFT, and then I took that NFT and I listed it for sale via a Dutch auction on OpenSea. And to me, I was like, I think it's the first financial asset that has been listed for sale on OpenSea. And it wasn't necessarily for me about like having to sell it. I still have the position and I'm obviously fine with it because the price is even higher since then. But it's more like doing like cool things and innovative stuff and like showing people what's possible, right? Like one of the cool things I think that should be done with the charged particles protocol sooner rather than later is that like I know a lot of times, right, when these early investors do these seed rounds, right, they get vested tokens, right, and so usually that's written into the contract and those tokens stream over time. But also like life happens and sometimes people need liquidity earlier rather than later, and it would be nice if, let's say, those ERC20 tokens were nested in an NFT where they were streamed out over time, right? And then if, let's say, I needed to sell the token in some sort of emergency, rather than have to go to an OTC dealer and do some sort of contract that will require deliverables and all the above, I could sell it to somebody at like a deep discount or whatever the agreed upon terms are, and it all happens trustlessly. So to me, like I think that that's like a great first like use case. And the whole reason why I wrapped it and nested it and put it for sale was just to kind of test it, and to try it out. So that to me was really the thought process behind it. it's very much like the money Legos, thesis that everyone talks about. And so what I like to do is just try these things and see what happens, right? Because maybe somebody thinks of something else, or somebody has another use case for it. But at the very least, like, I'm pushing it forward of being like, hey, this is something cool that people are doing that I didn't realize was even possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a fascinating proof of concept, and I think like leading the way for other people to start thinking about these assets in brand new ways. Now, I wonder if have you spent any time thinking about nested NFTs alone? As in without ERC20s or without DeFi, just NFTs inside of NFTs in those use cases, or are you really more interested in the nesting them together, DeFi and NFTs?
I haven't spent that much time thinking about nesting NFTs within other NFTs, but like my first use case would probably be to be able to send and receive a lot. Like I think I have over 1,000 NFTs in my wallet, and being able to maybe nest them and then be able to send them, be like, hey, this is this part of the portfolio that I like to kind of keep together and group together, almost like collections within my collection.
Hmm.
Yeah, I haven't spent that much time on it just because I haven't necessarily needed a use for it yet. But that, just off the top of my head, that's probably maybe what I would do, is maybe nest stuff uh, as part of collections, or to make it easier for transfer.
One of the collections that I've always wanted to see, we've been kind of talking about for a while, but just it hasn't come to fruition yet. And maybe you'd be interested in helping to bring to life the first time, is like a sort of an Avengers style like FOMO league of all of the avatar projects, nested inside one sort of collection. A punk, an ape, all of whatever the hottest avatars are, nested together as like a set of heroes. Uh,
Right.
that's
That's
kind
pretty
of.
cool. The problem is there's so many avatar projects now.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe it would be a pretty big league at this
Yeah.
point. Awesome. Yeah. And so then to kind of return to the DeFi and NFTs coming together, we're offering the nesting, of course, but fractionalization is another huge thing that's bringing liquidity to the space, to DeFi and NFTs both. How do you see this intersection affecting the whole space in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, beyond?
The intersection of DeFi and NFTs.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's where everything is headed. I think that all the, when I look back and I look at the creation of DeFi, I feel like the genesis and the origin story of DeFi was simply coming from the fact that in 2017, you had a lot of people that made a lot of money in crypto that couldn't be banked. And the banking system was like, oh, we can't verify this, so we're not going to let you use the money. And then they were just like, all right, F it, we'll build our own banking system. And that's kind of what the genesis of DeFi is, right? And that's how we ended up here where we are. And so if you look at how integral the banking system is in the real world to all forms of commerce, you're going to see the same thing in the DeFi NFT ecosystem, where yes, you need the banking system and you need those rails, but ultimately that's not going to be the biggest market within crypto. The biggest market within crypto is going to be NFTs, right? Because if you take a look at the financial sector in the world GDP as a proportion of all GDP, it is a big sector, but it is not the biggest sector, right? It is there to support consumer commerce, international business, B2B, every industry out there needs some sort of banking system. So to me, it's like a natural evolution of connecting these two, right? Like, the next frontier here is lending protocols, because now we have very valuable assets on chain that are very digital, right? Lending, being able to collateralize them. We've already seen that with money markets through your Aaves and your compounds, but the same thing will end up happening with NFTs.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah, I would love to kind of dive into where you see NFTs going. Now, in your interview with Robin Schmidt on the greatest NFT film ever made, you said something I think really insightful that helped a lot of people understand, why CryptoPunks are so valuable when describing, in a handful of decades, that if you were to build a museum of crypto art, you couldn't tell that story without CryptoPunks, which I thought was a wonderful insight. And it makes it very clear that this is a long-term sort of investable position into an historical asset. And so I wonder, at the moment, do you also invest in kind of smaller artists and things that are less likely to have this historical provenance, but do you have interest in these kinds of NFTs? And then part two of this question, what future use case of NFTs beyond art and beyond JPEGs are you most excited for?
Yeah, and so one of my favorite things about being involved in the NFT market is being able to invest in these new artists. I've invested in a lot of artists, and when I say invest, it's more collect, right? Like it's an artist whose work I enjoy, and I bought some, and whether or not they catch steam, it doesn't really matter to me. It's something that I invested in. The most fulfilling stuff I think I've done in the space has been stuff that I bought and maybe even like did a collaboration with an artist, and they build up a community around their work, and they hit me up and they tell me, hey, you changed my life, like I'm really appreciative of this. And to me it was nothing more than I enjoyed their art, and I wanted to collect some, and other people enjoyed the same, and they had a burgeoning community around it. So not everything I buy is for something that I think for appreciation or having historical significance, but it's the punks have their portion in my portfolio, a big portion within my portfolio. But yeah, I definitely for sure don't just buy things that I think are historically significant, and sometimes obviously that the artist takes it and runs with it, and sometimes it's just they want to stay small. And as long as I can help them to keep producing things that they do well that I enjoy, then for me it's win-win. With regards to what am I most excited about that's coming to the space, I think play to earn is really fun, and I think that's going to be massive in being able to change people's lives. Yeah, the thing about NFTs is that it's such a broad category, right? Because everything in the real world is an NFT. So every asset class, in my opinion, will be coming on chain at some point in some way, shape, or form. So that's to me why I think the opportunity there is so big and so massive, and why I'm willing to focus so much just on NFTs, because it's just like and you can be as imaginative as you want to be to bring things on chain, right? We've seen that in art, and it's happening with art already, and it's kind of kicking into overdrive now. But like it's going to happen to every industry, like almost like a rolling tide across the board.
Yeah, for sure. Very exciting. And so then for you personally, not just projects you're excited about, but what's next in store for you?
I'm launching a podcast on Wednesday, September 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a live podcast. More details will be coming. But yeah, I have an NFT infrastructure investment fund with Delphi Digital. I'm always looking to push the space forward. Like I said, last week I was involved in the sale of a CryptoPunk to Visa, of which we were discussing that for a week or two before. And to me, it's like I want to just push the space forward, helping get the word out there, helping corporations and people understand that this isn't just some sort of pump and dump. This isn't tulips. This isn't not crypto kitties. This isn't Beanie Babies. This is something that's here to stay long term, and that requires education, right? And that's kind of what I've been trying to focus on now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the show today, and as well for coming to Charged Particles to help demo some of the innovation happening here. And yeah, I hope you have an excellent rest of your afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you. You too.